And just before 5 days or 1 week before the shoot, the director called me. He said that you're being replaced. As a youngster, you go through depression. Sir, you are a hero, now you're a zero. I can work on any position, I can beat any AI.
We've got a lot of questions about resumes and AI and layoffs, and
I think today we are talking about gig, freelance. Next maybe 5-10 years, there might not be employment also. The average time an Gen Z spends in a company is not more than a year.
AIs are definitely replacing jobs. Is what are they actually replacing jobs?
So they have to understand the JD, they have to understand the company, they need to refine their resume in such a way that it gets into the next stage. More than the resume brand you're building on LinkedIn, they need to adapt like cockroach, otherwise they'll get extincted like dinosaur.
If you have some hiring secrets that HRs are afraid to say or just privy on their own end, the candidates today use AI to expedite their hiring process.
The most talked about skill in 2026 is going to be only two things.
People switch jobs to increase their salaries.
Today, companies do not give that kind of somebody gets 5% hike, 10% hike is a big thing. Gen Zs are very clear in what they want.
How do you see ESOPs being played into the whole picture?
You should not execute what you study in workplace. Then you are a big leader.
The secrets of layoffs.
As I am aware, 97 million jobs are going to be replaced. Everybody is panicked. There's too much of hype about AI. In reality, it's not.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Stories of India. And today we have something that will be of much interest to a lot of youngsters and as well people who want to build careers, pivot to new career options or stuff like that. We have with us Mr. Rajesh Swaminathan, who brings about over 20 years of experience in strategic mobilization of talent. He's worked across the globe, especially in ITS, ITES, and BPO services. Welcome, Rajesh. Very nice to have you.
Pleasure is mine, Dhruv.
Thank you for taking the
Looking
time.
forward.
Unlike other HRs, you've taken the time today.
I'm looking forward to the session.
Rajesh sir, I would want to start with your childhood story. How was your childhood? Where did it start? Did you know you would become a HR at one point?
No, actually, it is an accidental HR. So, as a child, I was very hyper naughty. I was always inquisitive to, put the other person in trouble.
Wow.
And I was very bad in studies. So, I was never good in studies, but I was good in other activities. So, probably I am the last bencher, we would say that.
So, sir, speaking of miracles, a lot of people sometimes find these jobs, right, in their life, and that's life changing for them. They end up staying decades together in that job, and that sets their life, that helps their families, their upbringing, and maybe their financial situations of sorts. Are you trying to bring that miracle to youngsters or people in this profile, or looking for people who have that grit to do more?
See, some of the things I notice is I'm not a traditional HR guy. I became an accidental HR. So before getting into HR, everybody has aspirations, right? So I was playing like any other kid in my flat, and I think I was about 16 years or 15, I would say. And my neighbor was an actor. So they were looking for a suitable boy for one of the roles, romantic film as a hero. So my neighbor recommended me because I had all the looks and I would be the right thing, the height and all that stuff. And at that point of time, you don't have these channels, right? The YouTubes or the Insta and all that. So it's a very closed community. And I was in my own world. And suddenly this thing came and it was a euphoria moment for me. And I went for the screen test and I got through. And the same day I was announced I'm the hero. And what will you do as a 16-year-old kid? You come to the flats, you come to your friends because they are the ones who encouraged me. They are the ones who motivated me. And the photograph what I had was not professional. It was casually taken, and that was then only I got into professionally doing my portfolio and all that. Then I came to know there is a world in modeling and all that. So I tried my hand there also. So before doing that, this came, and then I got into the film. And just before 5 days or 1 week before the shoot, I got a call from the film house. The director called me, and he said that you're being replaced. That is when Ajit, the actor, comes in and he replaces me, and rest is history. That at that point of time, it was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of frustration. You, as a youngster, you go through depression. It's very difficult to come out because every person whom you meet, sir, you are a hero, now you are a zero. That was the constant nagging which came, and I have not even finished my 11th. So what am I going to do? I had no clue. So a lot of difficulty and a lot of people encouraging me. I said, okay, I'm from middle class, so I need to have the degree to get into a job. That was a primary thought. So I got into that. But before that, I went for the shoot and I spent 35 days with Ajit. I came to know that he is the one who's rightly deserving it because he had all the skills. He had more self-belief. He had a lot of guts. He was a very average dancer, but he had confidence sky high because he got exposed to skills which I was not exposed. Like he went and worked somewhere. His family encouraged him. So that is why I always say to youngsters that you have to build your cognitive skills. You need to get your hands dirty. So he got his hands dirty. He was passionate about bike. At that time, he was fearless of doing all these things. Young, brash. So all these things when I spent 35 days with him, I internally realized that this is the guy who should be in front of the camera. I was not cut out for that. I was playing a second fiddle, and then there was a lot of scenes which were cut. Then I became a third fiddle in the film. And that film's name is Amaravati. That was the first time. We both got a break in films. Before that, there was nothing. I think he did one Telugu film, then he entered. Then after a lot of dejections, with great difficulty, I finished my degree. And then I got into the corporate world through my mentor, who was working in one of the top companies in DSK software. He said, why don't you come and work? Because family, I need to support. So I went and joined there, and that's when my journey started. And one day I get a resume, and he says, why don't you look at it? I started looking. I don't know for what purpose.
And you've been looking for the last 20 years now.
Never looked back. 24 years, I would say, and counting. Until today, I would have positioned close to 8,000 plus resources across the globe. I think that the cycle guided me to the right thing. And if cinema failed and hiring became a very big success, the joy I see when somebody gets a job is like a person going to a doctor. He's giving him life.
Yeah.
That is the highest passion. So I don't care about designation. I don't care about appraisals. If I find somebody a job, that kick I get till today is keeping me going. So till today, I'm a hands-on guy. I can work on any position. I can beat any AI.
Before we get into that, Rajesh sir, we've got a lot of questions about resumes and AI and layoffs. And before we get into that, I just want to know, there's this post I saw on LinkedIn of yours about theaters, very similar to people's walking into jobs and going out of jobs.
Correct.
Can you just
No,
explain?
I
a
was
bit?
actually I saw in one of the pictures, because I used to regularly visit PVR. PVR is something, you closely relate because when you get in, the entry is phenomenal, the lights and the ambience and all that.
The red carpet.
Like
yeah.
food court and everything was superb. So every time you get that experience. But when we get out through the back door, you have this shady green and the violet, and it looks very dull. If you see a very nice movie and you come out, you see the environment so bad, you take that with you. So I related that same thing when an employee joins a company, he's treated like the mass, he's treated with all those respect. We desperately call him, and then immediately he puts all his joining thing with all the kits and all that on post on LinkedIn. He tells his friend. After 3 months, it's a different story. Either he has a problem with his boss, or he's having some problem with his work. Organization is not able to address. He's not able to cope up, or there's depending on the role they play. Sometimes you have ROI, you have sales. The pressure will be there. So different organizations have different methods. So he gets out of the company. His exit is not very good. There's a lot of disturbance, and that word spreads across. So entry is good, exit is not very good. This is what has been happening in a lot of companies when people go. That is why if you see attrition, it stands at, even today it's standing at 25-26%. People are still leaving because they are not happy. And the toxic relationship which he has with people, those are the ones who define the organization. So his window of maturity will only be with certain bosses. For example, he's working in a big MNC. You might have 10 bosses who's probably doing good. You might have 3 bosses who are, trying to everyday torture you. So when he goes out, the organization which he works will be only through these bosses. So his language outside if you don't join these companies. Very toxic. So the word of mouth will be, your branding will go for a toss. Today, branding is very important. So when we call a person from a hiring point of view, I have to brand. I'm a brand ambassador for a company. So it's the same thing. HR has to take note. And they also leave. Let them leave in 3 months. If it's not working for you, it's fine. But don't have any animosity. Send them happily. And why should you keep somebody who's going out for 90 days? It doesn't make any sense. If you want to get relieved, get him out in 10 days, get him out in 30 days. Don't keep him beyond that. So that way, there is a lot of healthy thing which gets out. So what comes in a very healthy way should also get out in a very healthy way. That is not happening. That practice has to change. I think today we are talking about gig, we are talking about freelance. All those things have now come in. I think next maybe 5-10 years there might not be employment also. Looking at the way things are, I think all those things have to be changed, and HR has to make a conscious effort of bringing in these changes. And today we are talking about Gen Zs. The average time an Gen Z spends in a company is not more than a year. So that is what.
Some very hard truth bombs. Very nice. Sir, this comes to also the reason for this attrition. Very close to attrition, also divorce rates are climbing up. Do you see a link there? Do you see like a cultural change that's impacting attrition also?
See, if, the company where I worked right now, I had a very interesting stat. They said that industry attrition rate is 26%. Our attrition rate is 5%. This came out of the co-founder's mouth. So one of the good things is we don't micromanage. We give employees freedom, because we know that once you're hired for something, you are responsible to deliver. There are companies who do that. That is why their employees stay with them for a very long time. If you're given a role of a salesperson, I should not come and sit on your head every day and ask, give me the report, give me the ROI every 2 months. You should give him one year of time, because there will be ups, there will be downs. You might have your personal loss on that. You might come that day with a very down energy. These are all things you can't control, right? So I think that amount of freedom and time has to be given for people so that they don't resign. Now, coming to the other part, communication is becoming a very big issue between people, because they don't have tolerance. Earlier, there was a lot of tolerance. That is why diverse was not so much. Today, diverse is more because not only communication, people have become very bold. Today, exposure is more. There was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, there was no feeling that you are the superstar. Today, you don't need to have a celebrity. You are yourself a celebrity. So you have more options. So options comes, you're spoiled for choices, right? So always that challenge will be there. And it's even more going to, I believe, so in some time there is not going to be, marriage concept itself is going to go away. That's what I'm hearing. Another 5 years, 10 years, we're all going to be living, and people are going to get irritated seeing the same faces throughout. No patience, a short-sighted approach. We are living in the world of fast foods, right? So immediate increment companies, employees want, and they want, to buy branded clothes. The choices are there. So everything has to be immediate. So if somebody is taking time, they are left out. So one is adaptability is very important. Organizations adaptability. Policies have to change. They have to be very flexible, so that we can also relate to Gen Zs. We can also relate to the mid-level. That flexible policies should be very, very important, so that we can sustain. And people come and ask, what is in it for me? So that's a very important thing I'm seeing now as a part of hiring. So they are very clear. They want to get trained. They want to have a solid role. They want to be, independent of things. So that is the change I'm seeing. Micromanagement has to, if that continues, then all this attrition will continue.
Right. So also, Mr. Rajesh, the truth about AI. I did hear you hint about AI, so I'm forced to now ask. AIs are definitely replacing jobs, is what people are saying, but are they actually replacing jobs?
No, I have a different thought for this. AI is not replacing jobs. AI is only replacing BPO, contact center, all these day-to-day mundane jobs. For example, I'm from the hiring side. It will help me to shortlist resumes. It will help me to, speed up the process. Earlier, we used to take 2 weeks to find the right guy. Today, we can do it in 3 days, because the laborious way of doing things, AI is taking. So AI can be only used to those extent. But there are challenges where I'm not able to differentiate a good communicator. Like for example, if somebody pauses and speaks, AI, according to the prompts which is given there, it will think that the person is a bad communicator. So it will reject. He might not be a bad communicator. He's thinking and answering. Right. So that time is not given. There have been challenges there also. The good candidates were rejected. And then there's always a risk of, there's still a debate going on that somebody who does manual is giving far better output than AI in terms of the right people coming in. The quality of hire still rests with the human judgment. And so judgment and your capability and your negotiation skills, your creativity, all that only human can do. AI can do the other jobs. And today we are looking at customer. Today, when I go and face a customer, I need people who are very skilled, who are called as forward developers. When you are having an issue with the customer, you go there and you can instantly give solution. So that is where you need to use these AI agents to get the solution. Similarly, for hiring, I use the AI agent, I use the data points to make better decisions. But still the decision will be with me. Still the judgment will be with me. It will not be with AI. So technology should be for man. Man should not be for technology. Your phone should be for you. So that's why they say, right? Don't take your phone to your bed. Keep it aside and then go and sleep. So I think that is what I see.
Very interesting. No, I agree. AI is an enablement tool rather than building the foundation
Correct.
for it. Nice. So, the biggest mistakes Indian job seekers do today is over glorify their resumes or overestimate of what they're actually doing. But are those some of those mistakes, or are there something that you have noticed?
Yeah, I've seen one thing, they have a standard resume which they apply everywhere. They don't actually be in relevance. So once they have to see every job description which comes is a story by itself. You need to understand the story and align with the company's need. So they don't do that. What they do, they just take the same profile and send it. And they have an ATS tool which will reject the resume when they do the data prompts. So then what these people do is they end up not being selected for the interview. So what they have to do, they have to understand the JD, they have to understand the company, and they need to refine their resume in such a way that it gets into the next stage. So that is something where it has to be done by the human only who's applied. This is one. And second thing I find is, a lot of challenges in terms of the mindset. If the job is cut out to me, it will come to me. Otherwise, I don't care. That mindset has to change from the candidate who's applying. Because somebody who's an experienced guy will not gel well with the startups. He will have a set of jobs he will be very comfortable into. But when it comes to a startup, he needs to dirty his hands. So there's always a challenge in terms of how he's going to get accustomed to the latest thing. So all these are challenges. They need to rework on their resume. They need to see how the JD is, how they can align with thing, and accordingly present their resume, which will have a better hit rate. Otherwise, this rejection will continue. You need to use your common sense. That is important.
So, sir, you were saying about resumes, biggest mistakes. So once the resume hits the person, the HR in the company, and that's just the first touch point, what happens next?
See, they will also look at your LinkedIn profile. Today, resume is mere a paper. It's not going to make any difference. A personal brand too. So more than the resume, what is the brand you're building on LinkedIn? What kind of contributions you're doing? Everything is watched by the organization which is going to hire you. For example, you might be offered a leadership role. So what kind of contributions you've been making? What kind of information you're sharing? Which are the events you take part? Everything matters on a larger way. So before they take a decision, they will look at your attitude. You look at the kind of people whom you mix with, what kind of knowledge sharing you have done, what is the learning. So everything combines together to make a decision. So resume alone is not going to make any difference. You need to build your personal brand. If you do not have a personal brand, you start better speaking that language, because that is going to play a very vital role. I would say, maybe in the years now, there will be no more hard paper. Nowadays, people don't carry, but I think that is coming lesser. That's going to play a very big role.
I can imagine a Amitabh Bachchan dialogue in my head. कि the person comes for an interview, he's like, ये तो बस कागज का टुकड़ा है, आदमी तो मैं हूँ.
सही बोला आपने.
So, this brings me to one very controversial thing that I read recently. and this was between this person who was being interviewed by a senior person. I will not name names here, but this senior person is from a very reputed bank. He's been there for over 2 decades, and he's interviewing somebody who probably has about 10, 15 years of experience, and he's probably had an average tenure of 2 years across various fintech brands. And so now this 2 decade-year-old person asks that, why have you switched so much? And this is seen as a negative point, right? Is that trend still
I
true?
think today it's becoming more skill based. I think the people who are of the old mindset needs to stay irrelevant. They need to adapt like cockroach. Otherwise, they'll get extincted like dinosaur. Dinosaur extincted after some point. Cockroach still is there because it's able to adapt. So they need to be like a cockroach if they have to stay irrelevant. Otherwise, it becomes a problem. And I don't see anything wrong. If somebody is jumping jobs, also he's learning. He's got skill. So I will give more importance for skill than looking at all these things. And I've also had several fights within my company supporting such people. You need to give, unless you give a chance to somebody, how will you know whether he is good or not? Even if a guy who's stayed with the company for so many years, there's no guarantee he's going to stay after 6 months. What is the guarantee? And the guy who's interviewing, what is the guarantee he will stay? So these are all something which is maybe in those days it was very much there. I think your divorce rates were also very less. So companies, people stayed for a very long time. They will start their career in one company and they'll end it. Today it's not like that. People need variety. If some company is not able to give you the required roles, so they'll obviously look for other companies. So I think mindset has to change from the management side also. Whoever is interviewing, he needs to be in relevance. I think today it's more skill based than stability, your degree, all that is not relevant. Are you making any difference? No. Are you creating an impact? Are you in relevance? That is what is important.
So while we have you here, I think it's time for some gossip also from the HR world. And well, if you have some hiring secrets that HRs are afraid to say or just privy on their own end, is there something that you can, probably it's on referrals or direct applications versus referrals or IJPs internally, or something just around hiring secrets?
See, one of the biggest thing would be how they build relationship with candidates. Every candidate is a customer. You need to have a strong bonding with them. So that way what will happen is everybody will build a strong pipeline. And next is encourage referral, because how you are branding a person when he comes in till the time he exits out will enable a lot of things. He will go and spread the word that I had the best experience. The onboarding was smooth. They took care of me. They answered everything. It's not like machine, so we are all in person. So we give that emotional touch. Human touch is very important. So that is something where he feels he is a part of it. We own him. So that way the word will spread. Then the referrals will come. The relationship will be good. So it all depends on how HR is able to build relationship with those touch points where they can leverage maximum. And then it can help in not only solving the day-to-day function, but any new requirement comes, it will always be useful to mobilize resources easily. So referral plays an important role. Your Glassdoor plays an important role. How they go and comment on Glassdoors, the feedbacks they give, and then the rapport you build with your employees. That is very important, because if suppose you bring up with schemes where you hire you're referring somebody, I give you 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, depending on all that can be encouraged. And when somebody is referred, half the work is done. 70% of the work is done because he's referring somebody who's good, considered good. So I think it also helps to save HR's time. And suppose somebody is leaving, and you have to find a replacement. At that point of time, referral plays a very big role, because you're saving your time by going, not searching outside, spending that kind of money, and referrals will take care of that. And also the notice periods, everything will be covered. So I think these are all some of the important things, which is
Interesting. Very
secrets
interesting.
to hiring,
So
better
that
hiring.
so I also have sort of, there are these very popular brands in India, Zomato and Meesho, or who are defining like HR standards for companies. They have these policies for maternity, or there's probably policies for Gen Zs separately for upskilling themselves, um, leeway period for certain individuals to do more things in life. Um, what is this trying to say? Is this, are they building their own personal employer branding? Are they trying to hire more people, or is this, what is this? Is this the gameplay?
I think there is a lot of attrition happening in these companies. That is something I keep seeing. People don't stay for long, and it also comes down to the interest, how they can tweak their policies in such a way that the people who come in stay with them. So they have to constantly be on the shoes of the thing, because that is a employee market. The cost is not much. So if a guy leaves Swiggy and he goes and joins Zomato, Zomato will still welcome him. He will not question him whether you stayed here for 9 months or 6 months, because he need people. And there is a huge chunk of engineers, MBA graduates, people are all going in for delivery roles, because here the roles are not, they are not getting much opportunities. So there's a huge chunk which is taking these roles. These people have to bring in those dynamic qualities. Tomorrow, if IT picks up and if they say that I need a lot of MBAs, a lot of engineering graduates, Zomato and Swiggy will lose it. So again, how do you attract? You give them good incentives. You give them short fast food like goodies. Then they will stay. So I think that is why these policies keep changing in line with the trends.
Sir, also I want to like touch back on AI, right? How can candidates today use AI to like expedite their hiring process or make it better for them to be more effective in getting hired?
One is, as I said, the resume has to be tweaked in such a way that it gets past that ATS, which is again AI driven and prompts are all there. Another one is how best they can use tools like Gemini or ChatGPT to enable them to speak the language which everybody can understand. So it's not like you just copy and paste. That will be a very big risk. You will be ending up, rejection. You need to use your creative thought process from a candidate's point of view and come up with those pointers on the resume. Then, there is some value. You're giving the value, and that will add to the overall thing. And usage of these tools to get your work done. These are all called agents. You have Anthrop, which has come now. Everybody's talking about it. But again, everywhere there is an emphasis that how these people are able to use these tools to make their job easier, so that they can focus more on a creative. Like for example, like I'm to hiring means I'll focus on negotiations, I'll focus on branding, I'll focus on all those facts, because all these mundane activities are taken care by AI. So AI has to be consciously used in such a way that it doesn't affect your decision making ability, so that you progress and you use them only as your subordinate or assistant. So that is what I would say, is very important.
So something that I have personally seen is also that people have made ChatGPT part of their 90% work environment. Like they want to create an email, they go on ChatGPT. They want to make a call to someone and get a response, they use ChatGPT. If they even want to ask their manager for a leave, they will use ChatGPT. Is this too much dependency on one tool?
Again, it depends on the where they have to limit. It is very good to use ChatGPT for all these things, but they have to fine tune an area. For example, in leave, or they are trying to create an email, basic content, they can put it and it will come up with a story. So you need to have your logical ability and thinking capability to how you can tell ChatGPT to create the prompts in such a way that that thing fine tunes. You might come up with one email. Somebody will use ChatGPT and come up with a better email. He might score better than you. So that is where your smartness will come. So using ChatGPT for all this is a very welcome sign. It saves a lot of time, and there's a lot of scope and areas where humans can improve still and improve their judgment capability. The most talked about skill in 2026 is going to be only two things. One is your storytelling capability and your judgment capability. If you do not have these two skills, I'm sorry, either you are in marketing, sales, or media, or anywhere, you need to have judgment and storytelling capability, which no AI can replace.
So I want to touch about something very critical to a lot of people, which is salaries. Like people switch jobs to increase their salaries. Uh, why is it that internally people are not just giving better hikes to retain them if they're such good talent? Or the play of ESOPs, or how is salaries even benchmarked today? On what basis?
See, they usually go with certain data points which they collect from various sources, and Naukri could be one data where they find the salary levels. But unfortunately, what happens is the benchmark which is there, it is very dynamic today. For example, if I need a skill and the company is willing to go and pay X amount of money, there are a lot of startups and people who pay higher salary for the same skill. So if it's an employee driven market, the employees will have higher demand. If it's an employer driven market, employer will call the shots. Now it's becoming employer driven. It's no more employee driven. If you see, the markets have come down, the budgets are not very high. Today we cannot pay that kind of salaries. Only a few starters will pay, and these engineers have to get equipped in those skills where it is in high demand. So if you are really got the skill set, the companies will be having the flexibility to pay that kind of salary. But if you have pure vanilla skills, the companies will not be able to afford. One is because they don't get the kind of budgets from the customers. Customers have to be comfortable in giving you high rates, which of late is becoming a big challenge globally. And there is a global, slowdown is happening because budgets are not, and they don't want to commit long term. The contracts are getting reduced. There's a lot of challenges which are posed to the providers. I mean, we are called as service providers because we deliver various projects. So when that comes, it percolates to the payment to people. So that is why you have disparity. Some people will be highly paid because they would have been with the company for a very long time. Somebody who comes now would probably match up to that highly paid guy because he brings the niche skill which is required. So it all depends on demand and supply. Right now, the demand is less. There are too many people available in the market with vanilla skills. So they'll have to equip in such a way that they can meet up to the demand, so their salaries will go. Otherwise, there's going to be this challenge of companies not giving them the required salary. With respect to ESOPs, I don't see that being a very big thing in India. Maybe in US it's very consciously followed, but in India I don't see ESOPs being the real trigger point for anybody. Because startups today, many startups come. You can see several startups closing down with all those promises. It's all in paper. It's never, in the real money. So people have not seen great money coming out of. At the end of the day, they'll only want 50% hike, 60% hike. If somebody is not able to provide, there are only two ways to look at it. Either he needs to upskill himself so that the companies can afford it, that kind of a salary, or he needs to bring his expectation down. Because today budgets have become such a challenge that if somebody is demanding 1 crore in India, it's becoming a rarity. People will not pay more than 35 to 40 lakhs today. There are a lot of people who are beyond 40 lakhs who are still searching for a job. Companies are not willing to afford because they are not upgraded. Maybe if they upgrade to the latest AI skills in line with what the demands are, I think they can demand a good salary. And another thing, today we can see a lot of global capability centers coming up. They work directly with, you'll be working directly with the customer. The US is setting up shop here. So that is now becoming a big boom, and I believe 30 lakh jobs will be opened up in the coming years. There's going to be huge need of people. So there, the disparity is huge. Coming to a service provider means we work through the service provider to the customer, but there they directly work with the customer. So the pay will be, at least there will be 30-40% difference between somebody who's getting employed in a global capability center, somebody who works with uh, a a company like us where we are supporting SAP customers or Microsoft clients. So there's a huge difference. So that is something, it all depends on company to company, how they are looking at it. Now candidates apply and pick and choose with the right kind of skills. So salary surveys is not going to make any difference because today companies, do not give that kind of hike. You know, somebody gets 5% hike, 10% hike is a big thing. Beyond that, they don't encourage. Even if somebody is demanding 50-60%, they don't hire. They'll say, we'll park that guy aside, we'll look at other candidate. Unless he's exceptionally talented, he has the, you know, these skills.
Bring something exceptional to the table. Yeah.
With this skill set, you know, I'm not getting it anywhere. One guy applies, there are 10 other guys waiting. So company himself knows there are a lot of people available as options. So when he has got choices to take, you'll obviously go with others and you leave this guy who's demanding more, because it doesn't gel well with the budget and everything. No, customer to company, company to candidate. It's chain. If we do not have the budgets, we cannot pay that high salaries.
So I'd like to double click on this salary bit a little bit. I understand you have extensive SaaS and IT experience mostly, but do you think salary segments are same across industries, like other industries, manufacturing or textiles? Or...
There's a huge disparity. Manufacturing don't pay so much. Hospital, healthcare sectors don't pay such high salaries. IT is the only area where you get paid high. But doctors, of course, they are paid. But if you look at other support functions in a hospital or in hotel industry, they are not paid high salaries. Somebody who has to reach a 20 lakh figure is far, far lesser in other industries. IT is still highly paid. So I think the major chunk is we have spoiled our people in such a way by giving them huge salaries that, you know, anything which is below is a no-brainer. So they don't want to, you know, take up that. Their demands are going up. Similar to that, once the demand goes up, once they have high salaries, their spending power is bigger. So if you see among all the sectors, the highest spending power is only the IT. Because of IT, tourism has improved. Because of IT, malls have come. Because of IT, you know, such varieties of clothes have come, right? Today we are affording so much. It is only because of the high salaries which IT industry has given. So other industries are still to catch up. It will take a long time, you know, but the disparity is still there.
So, are there any success stories that you've seen, rags to riches stories, somebody from a very lowly background, somebody maybe not with ample amount of educational background, has then upskilled himself, climbed that ladder, and been able to sort of achieve that, like, big packages?
I think I would take Narayan Murthy as a great example, right? They are all not from a well-to-do family. They were all middle-class people, but they had a very strong vision. Be it Nandan Nilekani, Narayan Murthy, or Krish Gopal, you know, everybody had the same mindset. There were challenges when salaries was not there. They were running itself was big problem for them. But you know, from where they were to how they have built an empire is a story by itself, right? So it's all typical middle class. So that is something which I can immediately, you know, relate to. Both Narayan Murthy and Sudha Murthy are a prime example of rags to riches.
Amazing. So there's some contradictory thought that I had around Gen Zs, and these days Gen Zs are not being hired enough. Is also a thought process in certain regions of India, and because they're being called lazy, or they're being called entitled, or maybe they're also being called distracted because of the generational phase they are in. Is that something that you agree? Don't you?
No, I don't think that is the thing, because Gen Zs are very clear on what they want. Of course, laziness will be there because everything is easy today. Most of the time they spend time on smartphones. I don't think they are physically going out to the sun.
They're not being challenged enough, probably.
Yeah. And second thing is their physical exercise, you know, of going to the sun, doing some physical activity has now come down a great deal. So these are all things which is there. And look at the number of, you know, by a click of your phone, you get everything delivered to home. So where is the question of movement? The movement is less. The choices are more. So they're spoiled for choices. But I would not, you know, agree to the second one. They're more clear on what they want because they are very well aware. They read a lot of things. They are much smarter.
They have more opinions.
And they have whole loads of information is available for them to consume beyond what somebody can consume. So all these things are, you know, I think 70% to 80% of Gen Zs are very smart. They know what they want. When they come into organization, they want to know. They are very clear on the role, what they want to. So it is up to the organization to, keep them interested and gel them with the company and make sure your policies are little flexible to the Gen Z. Then I think there's a good camaraderie and relationship built. And then, then the changes will come in. But I'm not sure on the long term. Maybe 1 year, yes. If they are able to sustain beyond 1 year, it all depends on the organization's interest.
So, sir, again, double checking on ESOPs. For a lot of individuals in corporate companies, wealth creation is not really, it's just income creation, dude. But there's wealth creation that people seek through ESOPs, and because they're feeling part of a bigger journey, or maybe that's a delusion, or maybe they are actually, because I have seen individuals who have cashed in their ESOPs and they've cashed in big money, and they've been able to buy houses, buy big cars, or sustain for the next part of the future. Do you, how do you see ESOPs being played into the whole picture?
The whole idea of this ESOP came in when companies like Infosys and all emerged and they started giving stock options for employees. There was a trend when this was very popular. Today, I'm not seeing, the majority of companies giving these ESOPs and employees encashing it. The percentage is only still very, very less. But this is a big time in the US. They stick to the process. So the entire process outside, with respect to all the share and all that things are in place. So that is why they're able to encash and they're able to leverage that part. Here we have not seen that much of this thing. So when you talk about ESOP, generally there's not much of motivation for people. If I'm having a startup company and I'm going to offer stock options, I'm not sure whether the startup will exist the next year. When I exit, it's only in paper. I'm not realizing, right? So the question is, how many people have realized?
There's this big bubble.
Okay, so people have not realized or exercised the full this thing. So without that, it will be very difficult for somebody to look at it as a major driving force to hold employees. I don't think we have still reached that stage. It will take some time.
So also, the journey of a HR is also playing God, right? Like this person can either make or break somebody's journey in the company. At certain times they're called the fun police, or other times they're called the rangoli makers. Why is this being done? Why do you think people are so jealous of probably HRs?
Because they all assume that HRs are very serious because they are the ones who face the brunt, right? If the company is doing well, they cherish the moment. If somebody is asked to leave, everything is rooted to the HR. So we are the face value for the person to say no. The stakeholder or the reporting boss is not going to come and give a final. It is only the HR where we are involved in that. So that way, the impression will always be that HR is the villain. Actually, we are not the villain. We are only trying to be the mediators, and we are not only job givers. We have to see in companies larger angle, and we have to give the right communication so that we don't hurt anybody. That's the final goal. And irrespective of doing all this, we are still sidelined as a bad people. Something the perception has to change. Otherwise, we are always on the receiving end. Because it's a very thankless job.
That is a very interesting perspective. Sir, across your vast experience, are there also certain tools that make a HR be more effective in what they do in their day to day?
Earlier, I think we had Excel sheets where the primary, till today, that is being maintained. Today, we have all the ATS applications which have come up in the last 7-8 years, which we have used, where we gain all the information with the application. Then we had companies like SAP coming up with their own HRMS tools, which is very quite popular with a lot of companies. And today, if you see Grey HR as one which has been implemented, and Keka is very popular. Recently, we have purchased Keka about a month back, which takes care of the complete recruitment, payroll, everything it takes care. So all in one thing, and that's also quite popular with a lot of other companies which are implementing. I think you need to have a good minimum number of employees. So I think anywhere you are touching more than 100 or 150 or 200, Keka is a good HRMS tool to take care. It has got all features, and it's useful for general HR as well as for recruitment, both.
I want to come towards the end of this employee's life cycle, the dark, dingy end, like the reference that you made with the theater,
Yeah.
which is the secrets of layoffs. There's these big, huge MNCs who have these big pockets, deep pockets, but still they're laying off people like it's just flies. What is the reason for this? Is this going to trend forward? Will this also now start affecting smaller SME sort of companies?
No, I think I have a different take on that. I think there has been a over hiring in 2023 and 2022. After COVID, there has been a lot of hike in hiring because it was an employee friendly market. And for one role, they would have hired many people. And today, the big companies do not know where to position them because the budgets are getting reduced by the customer. So instead of having 10 guys performing the similar roles, they want to reduce it to 5 guys. So they would have overhired. But I don't see other companies, downsizing this many. It's only the big companies because of overhiring. And I don't think the markets are anywhere going down or anything like that because the layoffs are only happening to those big companies. Mid-sized companies, startup companies have not downsized anybody because they don't hire in excess. They already hire what they need. And second thing is, I think there's a lot of opportunity which is there for IT people as well as for people who are in the other industry. All they need to do is they need to upskill themselves. Bring in those AI tools, master the agents so that they can get the work done from them, and then they're good to go. I think I believe that as I am aware, 97 million jobs are going to be replaced by another 120 million jobs. So 120 new jobs are going to be created. If they upgrade, they will stay with very much in demand, and the same companies will retain them. So there is also a talk that now, which when they retrenched people in between, downsize some of the big companies in America, now they're calling back the employees because what they thought AI will deliver is not delivering. There's a lot of privacy issues are there, theft issues are there. The with respect to biases there in the judgment part. So it's not delivering what it has to deliver. So people are being called back. So I think the only way forward will be for employees will be to upskill themselves, keep a very open mind, and have this lifelong learning going on, so they can be very much in relevance.
So are there any certain early warning signs for employees to know that it's time to leave, it's time to say bye-bye?
Maybe inferences will be how the relationship is with the bosses, and somebody is not getting the regular kind of jobs. Their day-to-day jobs are coming down. That could be one of the trigger points. Another trigger point would be, favoritism within the team. Somebody is favored more than this guy. All these are some of the trigger points where they are indirectly trying to keep you in a state of limbo so that you get out, or they don't give you any job so that you understand that I do not have.
So financial growth or personal growth could also be.
And also your mental aspect, right? If you're cornered all the time and you're not given the job and you're sitting idle for the full day, that calls for some serious introspection with the bosses and with yourself. That could be one of the signs that will lead to a lot of depression and mental aspects.
So what should these people do in this case?
They need to upgrade themselves to other skills. Look at how they can develop new learnings, avenues to learn themselves. As long as they don't have a choice. We all don't have a choice. We have to keep learning. We have to keep our mind open. If we close, somebody else will come and grab the opportunity. There is a movie scene, right? It's, I think, in one of Rajnikant's film. I'll always relate to this. He comes to meet Ramya Krishnan in one scene. It's almost in the climax. And Ramya Krishnan removes all the chairs. And this man comes here, he has nothing to sit. So what he does is he takes a shawl, he puts on top of that unjal and he pulls it down. So that scene, there was a clap. But what does that scene convey to me? He says, you have to grab the opportunity. If you do not grab it, somebody else will come and replace you. So that is what they have to do. We have to keep our eyes and ears open. Before somebody grabs the opportunity, you grab it for yourself. So that is important.
Very interesting, sir. Very interesting. Deep insights. So also as part of moving on, right? Moving on from companies, um, do do these employees now find jobs which are on the similar level that they were at? Should they upskill and go to bigger jobs, better jobs? Should they stabilize? Basically, my question is, sir, are they satisfied with where they are in life?
No, there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's be honest here. There is a lot of uncertainty. What is going to happen? Everybody is panicked. There's too much of hype about AI and all that. In reality, it's not. When you open any YouTube channel, every third channel talks about all these things because they want to get TRBs. They want to, earn more money. So that is why they are there. They don't have any other job. They just have to create a panic. It's not like that. It's just that we need to keep our eyes and ears open and keep learning, because learning is the only thing which will help. So, for example, I might be not very good in my communication. How do I improve my communication? I can equip there. Same way, I might not be very good with my English speaking ability. Today, we are in the global market. How do I improve? Third will be I can start reading books, because books is something which will broaden my thought process, and I can develop some new skills. If you cook, no AI can replace your mother's cooking, right? Those days we had people used to do it physically. Then came grinder, but still, whatever it gets grinded, still your mom finally cooks. It still tastes like your mom's food. So when those things have evolved and when housewives have stayed through the evolvement, what about the people like us? You take bank for example. Earlier everything was done manually, right? Then computers came in. The people who were doing it manual entry, they had lot of challenges and restrictions of using the computer. But somehow we were able to adopt, right? So that is how it should be. We should all be like a cockroach where we keep adopting. If we do not adopt, there is somebody who's waiting behind. Today the competition is high. Everybody is trying to be intelligent. Everybody are the best. And you have a lot of tools which is enabling you to be the best. Right? So we'll have to pick and choose with our judgment capability, which is good for us, and try and maximize our potential in that. Otherwise, we'll always keep catching it. You're reactive. See the. I'll give you one small example here. You take America, you take Japan, you take China, you take India. In India, right from the childhood, we are always asked to chase. If you don't get good marks, you're a waste. If you don't find a good girl, not getting married, you're a waste. If you don't find the right job, you're a waste. This mindset goes culturally into their head for a very long time. But whereas you look at Japan, a kid goes to the school and he comes back. The mother asks the kid, "Today, how many questions you asked?" See the difference. Same way in Australia, if somebody is playing a sport and comes home, parent asks whether your team won. They will never ask how much you scored. If you have not scored, again they'll curse you. So there is a lot of ingrained thing in our culture that we are prone to fear and insecurity. That is how we are taken. So when we get into a company, the boss has got insecure thing, he'll push it on the subordinate. If you don't perform in 3 months, you'll be out of the room. First itself, that mindset is being created by us. Look at Americans, why they are good communicators. Why? Because they are given better exposure on their cognitive skills. They are very good sales. You look at Steve Jobs. iPhone was not a great product. It did not have better features than Samsung. But the way Steve Jobs told the story to the public made an iPhone an instant hit, because he was able to emotionally connect. Bill Gates emotionally connects because they are far more communicators, because they come from a position of strength. They are not asked culturally to chase anything, but we are asked always to chase. If you do not chase, we are gone. If you do not have friends, we have a problem. If you do not have a job, we have a problem. There's no end. If we fail, means that's all, we are gone. That is the kind of things have been ingrained in me, ingrained in anybody. So if I would have been in a different mindset, maybe I would have continued my film career. I would have had better skills at that point of time. More exposure. Why would a lot of people feel inferior? Why are we always, chasing things? Because our forefathers and everybody asked us to chase. You look at all the other people who are successful. Take Gujaratis, take all those people. There is something common. They're supremely confident. They might not be phenomenal in English speaking. They're fabulous in terms of their business acumen. Does the college teaches you business acumen? No. College teaches you geography. It doesn't ask you to explore. College teaches you physics. It doesn't ask you to build relations. College teaches you maths. It doesn't teaches you finance. So where it starts from where we got exposure to. So we need to get the right kind of things, and college also, schools also have to evolve and ingrain these skills, sports and everything, so that our people who come in has better skills, better adaptability to learn and evolve.
Very nice. So also, since we're on the same point, when do you think is the right time for an employee to retire?
I think age is just a number, as long as you're passionate. Today, the biggest superstar of India is Rajnikant. He's 74. And I believe somebody went to his home a few weeks back and he's giving a 5-year plan. So till the next 5 years, he has projects and he's still number one.
Wow.
So what does that got to say? There's no retirement, right? So if he's able to do, I can do. He has also the same 24 hours. You know the story of ants, right? If ants are always busy, but what are they busy with? But they are always 24/7 busy. So it doesn't matter, as long as you are bringing those outcomes. You're keeping yourself busy is never an issue. But we cannot be an ant. We need to make our outcome count. So it all depends on what you're busy with at the end of the day. So I would say that age is just a number. My example would be my next door neighbor Rajnikant. I would talk about Shah Rukh Khan. I think there is no retirement. Salman Khan. All these guys are still ruling. Amir Khan. Do they complain about age? They are the same 24 hours. If they can do, why can't you? Why can't I? Right? If it's not now, when? You have to prove it now. We have to stand for ourselves. I think you'll have to keep continuing that. There's no retirement.
Wow, sir, on this happy note, and you just took the conversation from the second gear to the sixth gear directly, and I was just amazed by listening to you. And with this, I want to close the conversation with Mr. Rajesh, and for taking the time and being very candid with on your conversation. It feels on the opposite side where the HR is telling me to be candid, but thank you for being candid today, sir, and taking the time and being here today and giving knowledge to people today, and the Gen Zs especially. Thank you so much again for your time, and I hope to see you on the silver screen at some point.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And we are all here to create impact, make a difference to our ecosystem. And one of the ways of doing that is giving. The more and more you are in the giving zone, you are always going to grow and you're always going to learn. So first we'll have to get into the giving zone. We have to be a giver. It need not be money. It can be knowledge. It can be any time. As long as we are in the giving zone, we will grow. And I will always love to be a lifelong learner. I'm still learning. And today I've learned a few things from you. So I will implement it in the upcoming too. I enjoyed my conversation.
Looking forward to sir. Please follow sir on LinkedIn. He's got some good thoughts to say.
Yeah, Rajesh Swaminathan. That's my LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.